And after a 10-month gap, the Doctor came back with another New Year's special, which just sounds weird to say. I mean, seriously. Doctor Who Christmas special just feels like home. What's your beef with home, Chibbers? So, I'm gonna say it now. We leave the Doctor sitting in an asteroid prison for crimes committed by past incarnations, which the Doctor didn't realize she had, having to live a routine to the point where she's reciting the collected works of J.K. Rowling. Doctor, you've been in prison. We might need to catch you up on some things. Fortunately, she gets busted out in a spectacularly innovative fashion, complete with some perfectly in-character ass play, by Captain Jack Harkness. Meanwhile, Graham and Ryan are getting on with their lives while Yaz obsessively tries to work their dormant TARDIS to find the Doctor, but their concentration gets thrown off when Jack Robertson, the cartoon character from Arachnids in the UK, has salvaged the remains of the reconnaissance Dalek from Resolution and has made a deal with a would-be Prime Minister to create a squad of security drones from Dalek technology, totally oblivious to the notion that Daleks have their own methods of production. I'm gonna get the weak points out of the way. How can humanity forget Daleks? I mean, granted, Moffat addressed this in Series 5 that Amy forgot about their attempted invasion, but that was just Amy living next to a crack in time that made her forget them. The rest of the world has no excuse. Again, this is a problem that permeates through a lot of movies and shows with heavy mythologies. Sometimes the creative feels compelled to ignore vital occurrences in their own continuity for the sake of dramatic license. Looking at you, Dave Filoni, you better fix that trial by combat bullshit in Season 3. In this episode's case, they could have said that we attempted to access the Black Archive to salvage units data on Daleks, but had no success. And then meanwhile, they could say that the Dalek from Resolution could offer them a chance to turn the weapons of Earth's enemies against them. This could have been a continuing commentary of humanity's insistence on aggressive diplomacy. On the other hand, that would lead to a whole other story thread that, well, let's face it, Chibnall. His ability to balance story threads is still shaky, which unfortunately is why the handling of Graham and Ryan's departure is so lackluster. While Ryan does get a fantastic scene with the Doctor, and more on that in a bit, nothing about the scene drops hints that Ryan wants to go, and while Graham not wanting to leave his grandson behind is perfectly in character for him, unfortunately, Graham is disastrously benched in his own Swan Song episode. Granted, his arc for the most part was resolved, and it's still nowhere near as poorly developed as, say, Leela's departure or even Melanie's. But we legitimately loved Graham. On this TARDIS team, he was the most beloved character. At least give us a scene where Graham proclaims that he's ready to face life on Earth again after losing Grace, and even dealing with his anxiety over his cancer. It doesn't have to be a long scene, and hell, it could have been part of his side story where Graham and Ryan, and yes, Yaz, are trying to protect Earth in the Doctor's absence. A plot thread which, frankly, again, they did not do much with, and it really would have shown how much they've grown as characters, that they can actually hold the fort with the Doctor not being there, and then they realize they're in over their head when they come to the realization, oh my god, it's the Daleks! Say what you will about Clara, and you have. By the end of her run, I had no problem believing she could kick ass on her own without the Doctor, but for here, Graham and Ryan's swan song, you gotta give us more than Ryan getting back on the bike and having a slightly forced hallucination of Grace, which I admit is still nowhere near as cringy as this.
Ain't you beautiful?
Negatives out of the way, let's get to the real good stuff. Firstly, one thing Chibnall has consistently did well during his tenure on the show has, well, been the quality of production. The production design is seriously solid on this one. The Judoon prison is gorgeously conceived, and I loved seeing the menagerie of classic monsters as her cellmates. I kinda giggled at the sight of a Pating. Not to mention, the design of the Dalek ship was outstanding, and I loved the way they filmed many of the chase sequences that they had within. It brought back wonderful memories of people running through seemingly identical corridors, but it never felt repetitious. And speaking of the Daleks, I love the designs of the Dalek drones. They were sleek and cold and imposing. When their lights go red, they seriously added a new level of menace, which the Daleks needed. One thing I admit both Russell T Davies and Chris Chibnall has done better than Moffat was successfully redesigning the Daleks. Sorry, Grand Moff, but the Skittles Daleks were never gonna take off. Another thing I got to admit Chibnall did really well here was build on things that he set up in prior episodes. We got to see more Dalek puppetry this time, and we even got to see a grander extent of how resourceful they can be when left to their machinations. It lends a lot of credibility to the age-old idea that Daleks are irritatingly good at survival. The episode even introduces us to the idea that Daleks are dangerous even on a cellular level by hitting us with the concept that their memories can be retained in their own cells and that they can use those cells to clone themselves, which makes Daleks feel almost cancerous, which in this COVID world seriously makes them scarier for me. Another win for this as a Dalek story is that it follows up with story concepts from Revelation, Remembrance, and Blood of the Daleks regarding the Daleks' obsession with the purity of the blood. I love how the Doctor exploited that well-established Achilles heel to wipe out the new strain, and also the way the Doctor tricks the pure blood Daleks was also pretty damn perfect too. I actually was worried about Chris Knott's Jack Robertson returning to the proceedings, but not gonna lie, they handled him way better here. He was still the same self-satisfied worm, but here he was actually a little more grounded, a lot less camp. It's also eerie how Chibnall wrote this episode in 2019. He predicted how the government is taking a militaristic stance to quell civil unrest. Hell, these Daleks are even armed with tear gas. This is Green Death level of political allegory that Doctor Who does so well. But, oh no, Doctor Who should never be political. Even though it always has been. I've also got to add one thing that drives me batty with Dalek episodes is when someone tries to negotiate with them. It drives me crazy because it always ends with that character getting exterminated. I laughed because that didn't happen this time. And it oddly felt right that Robertson would be the character who would survive by being the cockroach that he is. In his previous appearance, the Trump comparisons were painfully in your face, but here they actually dialed them back by having him subtly maneuvering through the situation to the point where he actually winds up in a better place than he was in the beginning of the story. To the point where I'm actually looking forward to seeing him again in later episodes. Meanwhile, Captain Jack has used a great effect here, particularly in his repartee with Yaz. Jack can see that Yaz has become addicted to life on the TARDIS, and I love that Jack warns her that this life is worth the hurt, but it is still finite. One day she'll have to part ways, and you can see that Yaz is not having it. It's a bit like Martha with Donna in that one episode. So while the episode is lacking, when it comes to saying goodbye, it does a spectacular job of setting up Yaz's continuing arc. Now, in the beginning, Yaz is hell-bent to get back to the Doctor because, again, Yaz is a person who wants to do so much good in the universe, and after doing that with the Doctor, the mean streets of Sheffield just kind of pale by comparison. Mandip Gill does a solid job of selling Yaz's fanatical devotion to the Doctor, and I do look forward to seeing what they do now that we're only expecting just one new companion in the future. I mean, Chibnall's been able to handle 2 companions in the past, so this should be in his wheelhouse. Should? As for the Doctor herself, Jodie is still wonderful here, particularly because of her subtleties. You can actually see Jodie using the previous season as a springboard for her performance. You can see her profoundly changed by the revelations from the Timeless Children, combined with her years in captivity, left with her thoughts and the collected works of the AstroTurf. But my favorite thing, which had me punching the air in excitement, was that it's clear that Chibnall is not pulling a Disney by backing down from the pressure of toxic fandom. He is actually going to move forward with his plans with the Timeless Child. In the Doctor scene with Ryan, she says that she left Gallifrey disillusioned, that she has a whole leg of her life that she doesn't know about, and now it's a complete mystery to her. And what's more is that she truly is a person without a home, and has been when she thought she already had one. As I've declared previously, I am avidly pro Timeless Child because it seriously opens up the routes the show can go for years to come. For decades, the Doctor has been a mystery to everyone except the Doctor themselves. But now, the Doctor is a mystery to herself. Now, not only does she have the wide expanse of time and space to explore, but now she can follow the seemingly infinite trail of breadcrumbs to find the ultimate truth about herself. And now we, as the audience, are on the same wavelength as the Doctor, on a level akin to Christopher Nolan's Memento with Leonard Shelby. Now, with every revelation that the Doctor finds out about her past, we are going to find them out alongside her. The possibilities here are limitless, and I just hope that Chris Chibnall sticks to his guns and keeps pressing forward. All in all, while Revolution of the Daleks dropped the ball as a send-off to 2 of its leads, it seriously wins on its merits as a Dalek story, and more importantly, as a stepping stone for the future. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that Chibnall should kowtow to fan demands and trap the show in a little box to never change or evolve in contradiction to the show's nature? Yes, I'm guilting you. Leave it all in the comments below, and for more Doctor Who content and Narcotic Castrol, simply like, share, subscribe, click, and thou shalt be served.